Welcome to The Definitive Wrap, where we report the truth about American exceptionalism. We love our flag, we love our country, and we believe in America. The Definitive Wrap, where we respect people of faith, the men and women in blue, and our support for Israel. And now, your host, Bela Seabrow, on The Definitive Wrap.
Hello, and welcome to The Definitive Wrap. I am Bela Seabrow. Thank you to Five Towns Central for sponsoring this show. Israeli citizens want to live in peace, and they go about their lives doing what they need to do. But unfortunately, there are terrorists who seek to destroy and kill innocent people in terrorist attacks. They do not want to live in peace. On April 7th, 2023, three precious, beautiful souls were brutally murdered in a terror attack on the Route 57 highway near the Habra Junction. Rabbi Lucy D. and her daughters, 20-year-old Maya and 15-year-old Rina, were shot by Palestinian gunmen, identified as Hamas members Hassan Kadnani, Muad Masri. This murder happened while Lucy, Maya, and Rina were in their car on their way to a family trip. This tragedy shook the world at large. In the face of this catastrophe, the world honors Rabbi D., the widowed husband of Lucy and father of Maya and Rina, for his courage, heroism, and love of mankind, regardless of race or religion. We have the honor of sitting here with the esteemed inspirational Rabbi Leo D., the husband of Lucy and father of Maya and Rina. Rabbi D. was born in London, England, educated at Oxford University, and served as a rabbi at the United Synagogue in Redlet before making Aliyah in 2014. Rabbi D., welcome to The Definitive Wrap.
Thank you. Shalom Bela. Actually, I was at Cambridge. Lucy was at Oxford.
Okay. All right. It was Cambridge. Okay. I sit corrected. Rabbi D., please accept my sincere condolences on your heartbreaking loss of your beautiful wife and daughters. The world is crying with you. Please know that. Please know how much the world honors your unbreakable strength. Rabbi D., when this murder first happened, it was initially reported as a traffic accident. Why was that?
I don't know. I don't remember seeing it as a traffic. Actually, my first fear was that it was a traffic accident because we just bought the new car. We actually had a 7-seater car, which we always took on holiday. And then because we now have we had three girls who were driving, we bought another smaller car, which was cheaper to insure for them. And we sold the larger car. So about 2 or 3 months before this happened. And I got a very good deal on this car, the white car. And so when I heard about this whole thing, but by the time I heard about it, my son actually saw a photograph of the car with a bullet wound, a bullet through the door and blood on the bag in the back of the car, on a website that apparently shows the terror attacks in real time in Israel. And we realized it was our car. But still through my mind was maybe she'd had a crash because maybe the brakes hadn't worked, or maybe the airbag hadn't worked. And on top of everything else, I had this sort of feeling of guilt that I'd saved some money negotiating a good deal on this car. Maybe that had partly played into this. And then it turned out afterwards that the terrorists had swerved the car off the road. It pretty much just come to a halt. And then they'd come out and shot them at close range. So nothing really would have helped.
Where were you at the time?
So we were in a car. We were basically pretty much neck and neck driving up the road. And Lucy took the left turn and we took the right turn, which was pretty much the same amount of time. By the time we heard about it, my sister and my parents were in a car an hour behind, and they told us that their taxi driver had told them there'd been a terror attack on the road, and therefore he was taking a different route. And she called me to see if I was okay, and I called Lucy to see if she was okay, and I got no answer. And I called Maya, I called Rena, I got no answer. And I looked on Google Family Link and found that they were at the Hummer Junction, so that was bad news. And then Yehuda saw this photograph on the website for terror attacks, and it was our car, and there was blood, and there was a bag, and so we turned straight around and we zoomed back, and we got there about an hour later, and we couldn't see anything because they kept us away.
Right.
But I said, look, I can't leave to go to the hospital to see Lucy if it was Lucy until I have a complete, until I know 100% that it really is our car. So they brought me Maya's ID card, and then I knew, and then we just zoomed down to the hospital to see if we could help Lucy in any way.
Did you know at the time the circumstances?
We didn't know very much. No, I mean, everything sort of came out afterwards, and it's a bit of a blur. And when these things happen, I suppose people react to different ways. But I became very sort of focused, and when I wanted to drive from the scene down to the hospital, the police said, "No, we got to drive you there." I said, "No, I'm driving myself," and I just drove, and that was that. So. I think people react to different ways. I was working on adrenaline.
Right, right. Rabbi D, you must know how much the world holds you in high regard. Not only were the organs of your loved ones donated, but one of Lucy's organs saved the life of a Palestinian. There are not enough words to describe the compassion you demonstrate even in such circumstances. You are an earth angel. You are an earth angel. Rabbi D, I'm just a mortal, not an angel, and I cannot fathom such valor.
Well, but Bailey, a couple of things. First of all, it wasn't a Palestinian, it was an Israeli Arab, which is different. So Palestinian is someone who is not living in Israel, well, is living in Judea and Samaria without an Israeli passport. So this guy has an Israeli passport and therefore had the same rights to organ donation as every other Israeli. And by law in Israel, if you donate organs, you can't choose to whom they go. So it wasn't my decision for it to go to him. But since 20% of the Israeli population are Muslim Arabs, therefore, statistically, it was likely that out of 5 organs, one would go to an Israeli Arab, and that's what happened.
So,
but I'm pleased that it did because, as I say, Lucy was very much for positive interactions with our Arab neighbors. She sent Maya and Tali to a summer camp in Area C because we're in Judea and Samaria, so we share territory between. Our supermarket is in Area C. We share it with the Palestinian Arabs, and near the supermarket they set up a summer camp about 5-6 years ago, and there were Jewish kids and there were Arab kids baking cookies together and doing artwork together, and Lucy decided to send Maya and Tali there. I was a bit nervous because I felt that if Hamas were to find out about it, they wouldn't be very happy and it could put them in danger. But Lucy said, even so, it's important they get to meet people, and she sent them.
You have previously stated that you feel no hatred for the murderers. Yet the media, and I'm specifically referring to CNN presenter Christina McFarlane, who stated after her interview with you, and just as we heard from Rabbi Leo's story, coming up we'll hear similar stories from Palestinians. Horrendously mind-boggling. Most human beings watching that were outraged. What was your initial reaction about this moral equivalency?
So I've said to many people, I'm more angry with the response of CNN in this whole situation than I was with the terrorists, because the terrorists are uneducated, brainwashed from the moment they're born, basically robots who press a trigger because that's the society in which they're brought up in. I'm not justifying it anywhere, and I think that actually all the terrorists should be killed and eliminated. But in terms of I'm not going to lose sleep over worrying about them. Either way, whereas CNN are educated. They have university degrees, many of them from Ivy League universities, and therefore they are misinforming people on purpose, which is evil.
Oh
and
yeah.
that makes me angry because they made a moral decision to misinform people about the situation in Israel, and yeah, and it happens in every campus in America, I think in Britain, and in Europe. That if you
Yeah.
were to walk around with an Israeli flag, you would be
Right.
attacked, whereas if you walk around with a Palestinian flag, you would be encouraged, and Israeli speakers are booed off the stage, and Arab speakers are frequently welcomed. And that's not just by the students, that's also by the academics. So we have, a serious situation on our hands, and I think CNN has a big part in this.
It's interesting when you mentioned before that Palestinians are brainwashed. I watched a documentary. This was years ago. This was prior to my preparation for a show on Manhattan Cable TV. So I was watching this documentary about Palestinian children in a summer camp as they were being desensitized, and one of the methods used was tearing live chickens apart in order to desensitize them. It's not something that the average person can fathom,
But
but
it's
they do what they need to do, not just to brainwash them, but this is a method, desensitizing them, and as though life means nothing.
but Bela, I look at it very much like the Holocaust. I mean, what I've been through is the Holocaust. That people point out
No,
to me that
I know.
Jewish people lost a third of the Jewish people in the Holocaust. I lost 44% of my
Yes,
family. So
yes,
I did worse than the Holocaust. But I think that just like the Holocaust, I asked myself the question: how many SS officers were there who actually were prepared to kill other SS officers in order to kill Jews? There were probably 10,000. I'm just guessing, but then there were
yeah,
probably 100,000 underneath who were scared of their boss killing them, so therefore they killed
right.
Jews because they were scared. And then under that, probably 1 million soldiers or whatever the number was, who were, if they refused to do whatever they had to do to the Jews, would be told by their boss that the boss's boss would probably come and shoot them and their families. So really, there was a smallish group of very seriously pathological killers at the top, which is all you need to control. That was a country of 30, 40, 50 million people. And the same applies in Hamas and Fatah and in the Palestinian territories. I estimate it's about, from my friends, my Palestinian friends, it's about 3% of the population who are, really the ones who are creating all the problem. Now, people said to me, what about the people dancing in the street and throwing out sweets? So I said, well, if you have one of these pathological guys standing there watching, and he says to you that if you don't dance and throw out sweets, then we're going to, massacre your family. So you probably dance and throw sweets out. So the fact that they dance and throw sweets doesn't necessarily convince me that they are themselves evil. But my father said recently something which shocked me, but was true. He said, his whole life he told me how the Germans were bystanders and how it was disgusting and they're all guilty and so forth. And then about the age of 70 something, he said, you know what? He said, if I was living in Berlin, a Jewish family in Berlin, and in the middle of the war, and some random Jewish family turned up and said, can we sleep in your house? And I knew that my family could be massacred, if they were discovered, and my parents and my kids and my cousins and my uncles and my aunts. He said, I'm not sure I would have had the bravery to bring them in. And I think that's very honest. And I think it's true.
Yeah,
We can be very quick to judge these people, but there are a lot of people living in fear in Nazi Germany, and a lot of people living in fear in Nazi Palestine and in Nazi Gaza and Nazi Iran and Nazi Syria. And so the average person wants peace. And then they've got this top tier of the pyramid who are threatening everybody and controlling them and taking all their money as well, by the way. So they're not only are they living in fear, they're also poor. They're slaves to the regime. They have no freedom of speech, no freedom of religion, no freedom at all. So I obviously, what happened to me was terrible, but I do also understand that it happens to a lot of innocent Arabs every day in the 200 million population of the Middle East. It's the norm for them. So it's we're just like sort of bystanders who get hit in the crossfire. But obviously, that's not the message of CNN. CNN is, the opposite. CNN said we're causing the problem, and these 200 million Arabs are living in poverty and in violence because of us.
Right.
But it's it's what I call an anti-truth.
Of
It's not a
course.
lie, because a
Yes.
lie means that, it's just not right. It's actually taking the truth and converting it to
Yeah.
and blaming the victim and
Oh, yeah.
making the aggressor the victim. And that's what they do. So that is, it's complete evil.
Did CNN apologize and offer to change its portrayal of Israel? Not only that, but CNN anchor Christiane Amanpour called the terror attack a shootout.
But she made an apology by email, in which I said to her, when you publicly accuse my 15-year-old daughter of being a terrorist in front of 100 million people, and then you choose to apologize by a private email, it has a 0.000001% impact compared to the original message. So she then went on to her show and apologized in a 30-second apology. But I think that had about a 0.01% impact. So I really wasn't impressed by that either. And I got a call from her boss, who is Richard Green, who is apparently Jewish and the head of the Israel bureau for CNN. And when I said to him, would you make a moral equivalence between my suffering and that of the mother of the terrorist who was neutralized by the Israeli army in a very moral way in order to prevent further murders from this particular person? He said, with all due respect, Rabbi D, we have to differ on that. So this guy showed that he was not only, lacking any moral compass, but as a representative of CNN, that really explained to me exactly how they get to the state that they're in, where they have completely transformed truth into lies and lies into truth. And they perhaps even believe it. I mean, but these are educated people, so I have to assume they're informed, and they're just basically lying in order to make a profit.
Educated people that promote evil are even worse than uneducated people, because the average person may not pay much attention to an uneducated person who's saying something. All right, let them talk. But when an educated person stands up and says something, people listen. And when it's an educated person who perpetuates evil, what horrible effect does that have on the rest of society?
Well, it's interesting. I was asked to talk about Geula at the Great Synagogue yesterday in front of 1,000 18, 25-year-old girls who are going to Midrashah, to seminary. And Geula translates in English to redemption or salvation, which are two words which have no meaning to most people. So basically, they can't be translated. And I think it's fair to say it probably can't be translated into any other language, because basically the word Geula is a Hebrew word which is referring to a Hebrew thing, which is a Jewish concept, which is bringing messianic era and making the world a better place, which is such a Jewish concept that it cannot be, expressed in any other language. And how do we do that? So I discussed this by bringing more light into the world. And how do we delay Geula? How do we delay this sort of improvement of the world? By blocking out that light. So people like Christine McFarlane and Christine Amanpour and Richard Green and David Zaslav, half of whom, actually more than half of whom are Jewish, are actually, blocking the light, and they're delaying the world from becoming a better place. And they're actually causing suffering to hundreds of millions of people, because they may not be aware of it, but actually those 200 million slaves in the Middle East are slaves because of them, very much because of them. Because when you lie and you claim that actually the evil regime is Israel that's holding back their progress, and the terrorists are able to feed off these lies, it perpetuates these terror regimes that cause suffering to hundreds of millions of people. So it's all backfiring on whatever their agenda is. If it's to make Jews suffer, then it doesn't work. I mean, except for me and my family. And Christine McFarlane said, Rabbi D, hasn't it been one of the worst years for terror in Israel this year? And I said to her, actually, Christina, it's been a statistically very low year for terror in Israel. Unfortunately, statistics didn't help me this year. But the fact is that really the chances of being killed in a terror attack in Israel is lower than being killed in stabbing on the New York Underground, on the subway, or in the London streets at night by a stabbing attack. And the life expectancy in Israel, by the way, is 5 years longer than that of America, and 3 years longer than that of Britain. So, despite this terrible, surge of terror, which killed 19 people in 3 months, which is less than probably one bus crash, actually life in Israel goes on and is better than it's ever been, but not for us at this point.
That's what
Obviously.
happens when someone goes through a tragedy. Life goes on for the rest of the world, but not for the person, not for the survivor.
That's partly true. I mean, I said to my kids after the shloshim, after 30 days of mourning, I said, we're entering phase 2 of our lives. And I said, phase 1 was 2 parents and 5 kids, and we were happy. And phase 2 is 1 parent and 3 kids, and we'll also be happy, but in a different way.
Rabbi D, please tell us about your beautiful wife and daughters. What were they like?
It's difficult for me to say without crying. So
I'm having a hard time speaking. My voice is throughout this interview. My voice keeps cracking. It's hard for me even to even in the beginning in my introduction. It was so hard for me to speak. And as I said to you before the interview, that I wish it was under different circumstances.
So I'll speak very briefly. I actually had a 3-hour interview with Mariv newspaper, where she asked me in detail about them, and I was in tears for 3 hours. I asked her if she could translate it and put it into the Jerusalem Post, because they own the Jerusalem Post, so hopefully we'll go in there as well in a week or two's time. So you'll find out a lot more about them then. But very briefly, I mean, Lucy was a light. Her name meant light.
How long were you married?
25 years. And Maya's name meant water of God, which basically refers to Torah. And she loved studying Torah. And she started a project in the high school that she was volunteering at for her national service in Yerucham, which was very much Maya. Thursday morning break for ninth grade girls. She introduced something called Nish Nosh Pash, which means pasha with a snack. And she would buy, I think, with her own money, some snacks for the kids, and then she would prepare a 1-page parsha, something about the weekly portion, and she would discuss it with them, and then they would have a little snack, and 15 minutes would pass, and it would be a way they could spend the break together. So when we went down to Yerucham last week, I went with Karen. They showed us that they've now spread this initiative to 560 high schools in Israel. And now it's being done in most of the high schools in Israel as a Thursday break time in memory of Maya. So I said to them, if we could explain it to the American public, maybe we could get American high schools to do this as well. And that would be another very appealing way to remember Maya.
How did your neighbors, your Arab neighbors, react? Did they offer support? What was it like for you? I mean, I know that Israelis were there for you.
The Israelis have been amazing. All my neighbors have been fantastic. We haven't had to do anything, make any food, do anything, lift a finger for 2 months, and they've offered to cook for us for the whole year, and have Shabbos invitations and invitations every minute. My Palestinian friends were absolutely amazing. I have to say that the moment they heard about it, they left messages on my WhatsApp. I could play to you probably, but I don't want to reveal who they are because they're scared not to be identified.
Right.
Sobbing, more than my Jewish friends. And they came to the Shiva house secretly and sat in the back room with me.
Really?
In fact, when the chief rabbi came, I had to keep him waiting for 10 minutes because I had about 10 of them sitting there.
Right.
And I didn't want to sort of abandon them. My garage mechanic, who is in Area C, so just outside of Efrat, has a magnet of Lucy and the Girls with the 3 questions on it, which is being distributed here, which is like, what did you do for someone today? What did someone do for you today? What did Hashem do for you today? He has it on his wall. He said to me, would any chance you can make these in Arabic? Because a lot of my friends want them. So I've asked a guy in Efrat, Jerry Latinik, who is probably from your part of the world, and he's organizing it. My neighbor, his son speaks Arabic, so he's translated it. My neighbor's wife is a graphic designer, so she's sort of putting it around the thing. And soon we'll have 1,000 of these magnets in Arabic being distributed around Bethlehem. So I'm just to give you an idea that they're not putting up pictures of the 3 martyrs, as they call them in Douglas. They're putting up pictures of my wife and the girls. So this also is helped by the fact that I was introduced to an imam of the mosque in Haifa, who's one of the kindest people I've ever met. And he came to pay, his respects after the Shiva. And we become friends. And he videoed me 3 minutes speaking about how I love the Palestinian people and I hate the terrorists and the Hamas and their leadership. And my dream would be for them to overturn them and so we could live in peace. And he took that video, he translated it into Arabic subtitles, and he put it on his own personal Facebook, which goes to about 1 million people in Gaza and in the Palestinian territories. He then went on to national Israeli Arab TV, I think it's called Makan, and he said publicly, which has not been done before, I think, or not that often, he said any Arab family that does not explain to their kids that what happened is a tragedy, is teaching their kids to become murderers.
Wow.
He said it in those words. So this guy, so I'm saying, so people, are behaving in ways which are very different to how you might expect. And there's some very, very good people out there. Yes. And there's some very bad people out there. But, the trick in life, I think, is to try and work out who's who. And as I say, shalom, that's my sort of goal in life. Basically, I wrote a book about this called Transforming the World. The Jewish impact on modernity, which is available on Amazon. And in it, I explain about shalom. I say that basically every thing that Jews do is there to lead to shalom, and I explain how. And what is shalom? It's taken me time to understand that it's not peace. You see, peace is like a mosaic, which has lots of square pieces that fit together and make a nice picture. But every piece is basically the same shape. And shalom is then more like a jigsaw puzzle, where the pieces are completely different shapes, but they fit together also very nice and create a nice pattern. So, in peace, first of all, everyone has to conform to whatever the peaceful nation wants them to do, which is rather inconvenient if it's a Christian nation and you're not Christian, or a Muslim nation, you're not a Muslim. So that's what peace is. But when it comes to shalom, you can have your religion and you can have your culture and you can do whatever you want.
Right.
But as I'm now explaining it, if you ever try making a jigsaw puzzle on a tablecloth, when you get to the bumps of the tablecloth, then the pieces don't fit together. So actually, in order to
you need a smooth surface.
You need a smooth surface. You have to iron out the bumps. So you basically have to get rid of the terrorists and the terror states and the fascists and the people who don't play, are not interested in your jigsaw puzzle. You've got to eliminate them, and then you can make a beautiful jigsaw puzzle. So that's basically a plan for shalom, which I don't think has been investigated up until now. So now I and this imam actually together are coming up with something which we think could actually be quite innovative in the spirit of shalom. And by the way, their word salam is based on our word of shalom, and they have very similar connotations.
Yes. Rabbi D, how are you doing?
Up and down, as you've seen. So I'm about to go to my acupuncturist later on today, which I found very therapeutic. So I'm a very scientific person, but another friend of mine who's a very scientific engineer swore by it. He said that in England he went to this guy once for back pain, and he cured him. So he said, try it out. So I've been now, and this guy's making a massive, I mean, I've been twice, and it's had massive impact on me. So I'm going to keep going, and hopefully that will help. And I'm seeing, they set you up with psychologists. So the kids are seeing psychologists. I'm seeing somebody tomorrow for the first time. And we shall see. So yeah, we're being very well looked after. The state of Israel, is the opposite to pay for slay. That the state of Israel looks after its victims very, very well, and Jewish people look after us very well, and everybody's doing whatever they can do to help.
Rabbi D, thank you for joining us. Please know how much the world honors your unbreakable strength and courage after such unspeakable tragedy. May the beautiful souls of Rebbetzin D, Maya, and Rena have the highest aliyah, as they are surely soaring in Gan Eden, and watch over you and your family. May Hashem comfort the cherished memories and comfort you as you deal with this. There are no words. There are just no words. There are no words.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Shalom.
thank you to our audience for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to The Definitive Wrap with your host, Bela Seabrow. Be sure to tell your family and friends they also can catch The Definitive Wrap on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, and your favorite streaming service. See you next time on The Definitive Wrap.